Although I think the reveal in Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man identity reveal of all time. When MJ finds out that Peter is Spider-Man when he saves her, when he catches the wall that's going to come fall on top of her. I think that's the best reveal ever. Although I like Gwen Stacy the way he reveals with the webbing to pull her closer to him.
They haven't even like kissed yet.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Spider-Man." She's like, "You didn't even have to say that. I was going to kiss you at some point." He's like, "Oh damn."
He's going to be using that move for every girl.
Yeah.
His Tinder profile is "I'm Spider-Man."
If you like Spider-Man, you'll like me.
Wink, wink. But I think every time I see the Spider-Man 2 reveal, it does give me goosebumps. Like when Kirsten Dunst sees Tobey's face and she's like, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. I think it's an excellent reveal.
They saved it for so long.
And then the Amazing one is very cute. It's romantic. And then I think that the Tom Holland Zendaya one is funny, but I think playing it for a joke for me didn't really work out. She's like, "You're Spider-Man." Yeah, obviously. I figured that out.
I think the more emotional is the better because I think it's a big part of the character.
Yeah, I think it was a little underwhelming for the Far From Home was that one. Yeah. For me, I mean, it's cute. It was funny, but it was a little too light for something so impactful as discovering that he's Spider-Man. Like the Ned one is really funny when he comes into his room and Ned's waiting for him and he drops the Star Wars Lego set.
Yeah.
Like that's funny, but it's just because it's Ned. You know what I mean?
And when Aunt May finds out at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming that he's Spider-Man. Like Homecoming, right?
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
That one's super funny, and that works played for a laugh. But when it's someone that you love, I felt like it should have been a little bit more deeper than that. What's up, webheads? Welcome back to the show. This is Anthony.
And this is James. We're back talking about Spider-Man because we saw No Way Home. I'm sure you all did. We'll try not to spoil it, but I mean...
We're going to spoil it.
We might throw in a little...
spoil it.
There might be a few dashes of salt and pepper from No Way Home in this episode, but everyone was... Oh, yeah, we have to because
we expect everyone's seen it by now.
All right, warning. We're going to spoil No Way Home.
It's been out for 2 weeks.
But, everyone's talking about Andrew Garfield now and how they want Amazing Spider-Man 3 after seeing his performance with the other two Spider-Men on screen together and how amazing he is. And now everyone, forgets how great he was. And, I miss him. And we watched these two movies just because we're going to have to cover them at some point. We might as well do it right now when everybody's so hot for it and talking about it.
I think when I watched him No Way Home, he really stood out as the most personable, great, best actor of the film. And I feel like he stole every scene he was in. When you have all three Peters together, and Toby and Tom are really fantastic. But for me, Andrew Garfield really, I think, stole the scenes he was in for sure.
Yeah, it's too bad because he's a great Peter Parker. He's a great Spider-Man. They did a lot of great things with these movies, but, the second one just kind of left it flat and they went a little downhill. And I liked the first film a lot. So the first one, The Amazing Spider-Man, is on IMDb at 6.9, Rotten Tomatoes score of 72%. Critic and then 74% audience. Then Amazing Spider-Man 2 is an IMDb of 6.6, Rotten Tomatoes 52%, which is pretty bad. And then for critical, and then 64% for audience score. And so I think they both
64 audience. That's not good.
That's pretty good. It's fresh.
That's not what they want.
For when you compare
it's barely fresh.
When you compare it to No Way Home, which was 99% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's barely fresh.
In Spider-Man 2. So the thing is I like them a lot, but they're not even in top 5 probably when you talk about all the Spider-Man movies. Maybe one of them is in there.
Well, my list is Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, No Way Home, Into the Spider-Verse, and then maybe Amazing Spider-Man 1, but also Spider-Man 3 has a lot of great elements to it.
The first 40 minutes of Spider-Man 3, that could have been the best Spider-Man movie of them all, if they did it right.
It's got a really great first act, and ultimately, I think that Andrew Garfield was a really fantastic choice for Peter Parker, and we had been fans of his for a while. Obviously, everyone found out who he was from The Social Network. He really stood out in that movie and killed his scenes as Eduardo Saverin. He didn't get nominated for an Oscar, but I think he should have gotten supporting actor nominations because Jesse got nominated. But he really stole his scenes in that movie. He worked so well as that character. But we had been watching him in a couple of independent British films before then, most notably his breakout performance in a movie called Boy A, which is a small British indie drama coming of age about a kid who's dealing with
horrible traumatic
trauma.
past.
Really, really excellent performance by Andrew Garfield. I saw that and I was like, this guy is awesome.
He won a BAFTA for kids TV or
breakout
TV
rising
movie.
star.
No, it was TV movie performance.
And also he won the Rising Star BAFTA as well. So he is super talented. And I think for Peter Parker, I understand that I even criticize Peter Parker is too cool in this universe to be a loser with no friends. I love the idea of making him this cool kid who skateboards and is really artsy and is just very charming and funny. But they should have given him maybe a friend or two like Ned in No Way Home because having him this interesting and cool of a person and have no friends at school, for me, that really was a problem with the Peter Parker approach in these films. Like, why not just give him like a best friend, and it doesn't have to be Harry. It could be someone like created like Ned.
There are people like that in high schools. I was watching, I was like, you know what? I actually don't hate this concept that he's like doing kickflips on a skateboard.
No, I love that he's cool. It's just weird that he doesn't have any friends.
There are people like that in high school that don't have any friends that are like overachievers in one, like they're artistic or they're super smart or they're just
like me.
They're like,
no, it's just the no friends
or just
part.
like the rebel, that no friends. But he's a loner. I think he did a great job as Peter Parker, and they were both very successful. The first one, The Amazing Spider-Man, grossed $757 million worldwide. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 then topped out at $708 million, which I guess you could say is a miss because I'm sure they were expecting to get close to $1 billion with that.
Yeah, and you don't want the second film to make less money, especially coming off the Tobey movies, which all made about $1 billion. They're all around $1 billion.
Yeah, but I think the problem is, Sam Raimi set the bar so goddamn high with Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. Like, how do you even top that or come close to it? There's so much pressure on it for Sony, and there's just Peter. Then and Andrew Garfield is new Peter Parker. Just to
Mark Webb.
Yeah, Mark Webb, who was coming off 500 Days of Summer at the time.
He was also a big-time music video director.
Yeah, so I think he was a great choice for the franchise, for sure, for those first two films. But, like, the MCU, when they did Tom Holland's Spider-Man, they didn't really have that amount of pressure because they had so many heroes already. And when Spidey comes in Civil War, there's already, 10 superheroes on screen. Yeah. So it's, not that daunting of a task, I would say, to reboot Spider-Man.
Well, the thing with Marvel is the tone had already been established, and the style had already been established for, 10 movies. So when like you said, when Peter came in, he's just a supporting player, and they already had their formula. Whereas Mark Webb, I think, is a talented director. He made some really great music videos, like a bunch of My Chemical Romance's videos he made. And
Anthony's emo phase.
Yeah,
love those.
Oh, yeah. I'm not okay. A bunch of Green Day videos. So he's a very talented director, and 500 Days of Summer was a really fantastic rom-com. I really like that movie.
I don't even call that rom-com.
Oh, no? What do you call it?
Comedy or drama.
There's a romance to it.
But it's not like a rom-com.
Okay, I guess you're right. Jimmy's obsessed with
I have a poster of that movie. I love it.
It's a great movie. But Mark Webb, I think the challenge that Sony had was trying to do something different from what Sam Raimi did. Obviously, like you said, because he set the bar so high. But also, I think the tone of Raimi's Spider-Man movies was just tonally really perfect. So they obviously wanted to go, let's go edgier, let's go a little bit more youthful, pop culture-wise. Let's make it feel like, he's like a kid that young people can really relate to and enjoy being like I would love to be friends with that kid. You know what I mean?
How come you were pointing at me when you said that, but you didn't say you want to be friends with me?
I would love to, but
you were
it's not
pointing
at me.
I'd love to be friends with that kid, but you're not talking about me.
It's just not going to happen, man. I'm sorry. And they went edgier. The costume was a little more streamlined. It felt like punky-ish. The gold eyes and just the costume.
Big eyes.
Yeah, the big eyes. Well, the big eyes in the second one. The first eyes I didn't like. The gold slim eyes.
Because they were like the sunglasses that he just he put inside, fabricated in.
Exactly. And they made it more fun. I think that Garfield is super funny. Peter Parker is very funny. But also Spider-Man, he's wisecracking. He feels like a New Yorker.
The accent.
Yeah, exactly. And he references like Dustin Hoffman in I'm swinging here.
Yeah.
But also the way he interacts with the cops and the bad guys. He's just very... when he's in costume, he's so confident, and he's just messing around half the time, and that fun aspect of the Spider-Man character is something we didn't see in Tobey. So they definitely mixed things up and did a different approach, and it had benefits and it had cons.
Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast, where you get awesome perks like our podcast schedules, personalized videos, Patreon shoutouts on the show for top tier and Godfather tier patrons, as well as weekly bonus episodes that only you have access to. And yes, you heard Godfather tier, right? That's a new tier that gets another bonus episode, as well as free stickers and stuff like that. We also just launched our podcast masterclass online course, so for anyone who wants to start a podcast or improve their current podcast, our 22-chapter, 46-video lesson course will give you all of the secrets behind the scenes of how we got our show going and found the success we have achieved. The link is podcastmasterclass.teachable.com, or just go on our website, raidersoftheLostPodcast.com, and the link is right there on the homepage for the podcast masterclass. Follow, subscribe wherever you're listening. Thanks so much for tuning in around the world. And let's get back into the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. And so I love the tone that they set in Sam Raimi's, like you're talking about, but I still like the tone that they set in The Amazing Spider-Man. The first movie, it's a really good origin story. They hit all the same beats, but in different ways. I would say that, Ben's death was done better in the first one in Sam Raimi's trilogy. The one in this one, it's kind of like, who would go after a guy who drops a gun? Like, I know he wants to protect people around him, but like he wasn't like waving the gun around or anything. Like, it just like fell out of his pocket.
It was very weird for Ben to grab for the gun.
So Ben's death felt a little forced to me, but I mean, it's part of the origin story. We have to get to it. But what I really like about the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, specifically the first one, is the mystery behind Peter's parents' death and where they are. And Richard Parker, specifically his research, his connections to Oscorp, and then the connections to the radioactive spiders that he's working on.
I agree. I like that introduction of that mysterious background and why it, and they really explain like Peter's the only person that could ever survive this venom and live from it and get the superpower. So I like that aspect of it. I like how his past and why his parents abandoned him, why he was left with his aunt and uncle. I like why all of that was explained. However, I will say in the second film, it wasn't necessary again, because in the second movie, so both movies open with
flashbacks
of his father. In the second movie, it's like a 10-minute scene on that plane and stuff, maybe even longer. And the whole time I watched this opening, I'm like, I want to see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You got to start a Spider-Man movie. When he's already established, you get to start it with the Spider-Man scene.
Or just like a couple-minute flashback. But like the way the second one opens up, like this 10-15-minute sequence, like on
be 15 minutes.
On a private plane, like they turn Richard Parker into like kind of a superhero sort of in his own way, like on the run. Like, first of all, like I have issues with the script of the second one because it seems like it was rushed. They didn't have Steve Kloves, who worked on the first script.
He touched the first one up.
So he's the guy who adapts J.K. Rowling's books, Harry Potter books, to the Harry Potter franchise, except for Goblet of Fire. That's the only one he didn't do.
Order.
Or is it Order that he didn't do? Okay, so Order of the Phoenix he didn't do. So I think the issue with this movie is the script was rushed. There's a lot of plot holes, and I think like the opening of like the concept of like Richard Parker's on the run with his wife. They're on this private jet. You're being chased by this multi-billion-dollar corporation that has power and resources around the entire world. You hop on a private jet.
Like, that's very that's not inconspicuous.
You don't think your ID is gonna get flagged or anything? Your passport's gonna come up at all? Maybe get on like a bus. Get on a Peter Pan bus and just go to like Missouri. Like, that is the worst place. I thought this guy was a genius. Like, we'll hop on a private jet, the most conspicuous way to travel.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. Like, obviously they're gonna find you guys.
And then like the fight on the plane and everything, I get it. And then the uploading the information to Roosevelt, which I mean, was 2014? I don't think Wi-Fi was that good on planes to be able to transfer.
No way, not back then.
And then like the underground subway, like how many years did that take to build?
Yeah, so when Peter goes to the subway and he thinks it's gonna be like a wall on the door, a door on the wall, like something simple, but then he turns around and when he puts the coin in the meter, and then the entire friggin' train station just transforms and then the train rises up. I'm like, did his dad build this all by himself?
Is this Ninja Turtles?
Like, Jesus Christ.
So like there's like things like that that kind of like they just forced into the script, which for me didn't fully make sense. And whenever I watched them, I'm like, oh, come on, this doesn't feel like a great like superhero movie sometimes. And like little plot holes, like when Felicia happens to overhear the board members talking about the most secretive piece of research in the entire company to tell Harry that there's still venom in the building somewhere. It's like,
that's just like a plot hole.
It's like little things that are like, oh, how do we explain this? Just have Felicia overhear it. They're just gonna be talking at Starbucks about the most important thing that could lead to the downfall of the entire corporation out loud. Like, at least put it in an email. So like little things like that, I don't want to nitpick and destroy the whole movie because
we all know that these aren't perfect movies,
but I still enjoy it. And I think I like the villains in these two movies, except for maybe Harry. I think could have been done better. But I like Lizard in the first one. I think Curtis Connors is a fantastic villain in the first one, and then I like Electro for the most part in the second one.
So for the Lizard, I think it worked out really well because they wanted to do something different and something unexpected. And the Lizard, I think, was a good choice for the first film. And, you know, the CGI looks fantastic. These battle scenes are really epic, you know, and Peter's actually getting hurt by the Lizard. I really think they hit it out of the park with this villain. Although I will say I'm not a fan of his ultimate plan by the end of turning the whole city into lizards, and they make fun of it in No Way Home.
Yeah.
He's like, he wanted to turn the whole city into lizards.
And he still wants to do it.
And it's like, I think that if the scope stayed a little bit smaller for the first film, it would have been better. Like, maybe something like Lizard wants to kill like a bunch of people when they're all trapped in a building and Spider-Man has to stop them. Like something like that. I think the stakes of making the entire city in jeopardy didn't really suit that character's plan.
Well, I think it's just the venom changed him so much in the serum. So like he turned into a lizard man. So it's like, I want to make everybody a lizard man. Y'all gonna experience this. It's so cool.
We're so strong and fast.
It's like peer pressure, but like forced.
Yeah, exactly.
But in terms of him being a villain and the connection with Kurz Connors and Richard Parker that we find out later on. I really like that stuff in the connections between Peter and Oscorp that we find out teased in the first one, but in the second film, and Oscorp obviously is a main player. I also like that Gwen Stacy is the main romantic interest in this film versus MJ doesn't appear at all. And I know Shailene Woodley shot scenes for these films, for the first film to be MJ, but they got scratched inevitably, and she didn't even make the cut. But I like Gwen. I think Emma Stone is amazing in these movies. Obviously, I think we all were disappointed by her death in the second film. That might have been what caused the doom for the critical response of the second film of Gwen Stacy's death.
I agree. I don't think they needed to kill her because, and also when people saw on the internet, and we're not familiar with the comics, but when people saw her outfit in the press release photos, they were like, "Oh, she's gonna die." And then I looked on every news website. Yes, Gwen Stacy dies in the comic books, and she's wearing this exact same outfit. And I was like, oh, okay, so she's gonna die in this movie. So I knew it was gonna happen, basically, walking into the film. And also, you go through Ben's tragedy in the first film. We don't need another major death in the second film. It would kind of suck the fun out of the movie for sure. I think Marvel's Spider-Man movies, they know like no one major dies, so
except for Tony after 17 movies.
Yeah, and Aunt May, but it's the final movie for like Aunt May. That's okay, but the second movie, you get it. I don't think you should have a major tragedy, especially because Gwen was a really great character. Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield have so much on-screen chemistry, obviously because they had real life relationship. But Gwen, I think, is the best love interest for Peter that we've seen on screen because she's always heavily involved in the plot. She's always helping Spider-Man. She's vital to him succeeding in every one of the movies. And I think the romance between Gwen and Peter in these movies is by far the best romance of all the Spider-Man movies. Not even close.
Yeah, it's so authentic because it's like real love on camera that they capture. Like them flirting in the hallway, like Peter asking her out, but they're both so nervous and like spinning and twitching and like they can't even talk. They can't even. He's like, you want to maybe, or we could do this instead, or
either one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure, either one. Yeah, let's do it. It's very cute and endearing, and I get all blushy when I watch it.
Yeah, and the thing with Toby and Kirsten, it was always they didn't have like the spark.
It seemed like a classical romance, like a classical like film from like the 60s, like that kind of romance where it didn't seem real sometimes, I guess you could say.
In the third film, they didn't feel like they were a couple. You know what I mean? In the second one, it was great because she finally discovers he's Spider-Man, he's Peter Parker. You're Peter Parker.
The second film.
Yes, that's what I said.
Oh, did you say third? I thought you said third.
But the
Honestly,
third,
not even listening to you.
But the third one, when they're a couple, I know they're on the rocks, but they never felt like a couple. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel right. Whereas... And then Zendaya and Tom Holland, obviously they don't have an intimate relationship in the first one, and then they reveal their feelings in the second one, kind of in the same trajectory of the original trilogy. And then the third one, it's definitely a lot better. They feel like a couple for sure, but I still feel like it didn't feel romantic like the Garfield Stone. Really feels like these two are super in love.
I think No Way Home really solved that. I think with MJ and Peter, with Tom Holland and Zendaya, I think they really improved on that a lot, especially with giving MJ like a lot more to do with the plot, helping out, especially Ned, the three of them like working together to round everybody up in No Way Home. So I think they resolved that a lot. But I think, Gwen Stacy, I think, is my favorite love interest we've seen on film for Peter Parker in general.
She's an answer to the MJ problem in the first trilogy.
You could probably say that for sure. And so that's why I was so disappointed to see her get killed at the end of the film, which I understand, like, you want to have your hero go through loss, but I mean, he's gone through so much loss already, and you could say Ben's his big loss, but you know what?
His parents.
I love the way they addressed it though in No Way Home. You know, when he saves MJ falling down, and he's crying and seems to be more shook than MJ, who just fell like 100 stories, and she's like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm okay."
Yeah.
So I think that was like a nice redeeming quality, which I think the MCU did a terrific job. But something I really like about the first film is his identity gets revealed a lot compared to like the first two films.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to Toby and Tom. So Gwen finds out his identity in the first one. Her father, the captain, finds out his identity. Kurz Connors obviously does. Harry finds out in the second film. But I don't like how Aunt May never really does. Maybe you could say that she kind of knows secretly, but we never get a reveal of that.
It should have, because in the end of the first one, he comes home after like the disaster in New York City is saved by Spider-Man. He's just a mess, all bloodied and bruised. And he's like, it was a rough night. And it seems like she understands that he's Spider-Man, but in the second one, she doesn't seem to understand at all.
They kind of just like passed it, swept it under the rug.
Like obviously he's Spider-Man. Like it's pretty in your face.
But I like how the identity is revealed pretty quickly, although I think the reveal in Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man identity reveal of all time. When MJ finds out that Peter is Spider-Man when he saves her when he catches the wall that's gonna come fall on top of her. I think that's the best reveal ever. Although I like Gwen Stacy the way he reveals with the webbing to pull her closer to him.
They haven't even like kissed yet.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Spider-Man." She's like, "You didn't even have to say that. I was gonna kiss you at some point." He's like, "Oh damn."
He's gonna be using that move for every girl.
Yeah.
His Tinder profile is "I'm Spider-Man."
If you like Spider-Man, you'll like me.
Wink, wink. But I think every time I see the Spider-Man 2 reveal, it does give me goosebumps. Like when Kirsten Dunst sees Toby's face and she's like, and I get goosebumps thinking about it. I think it's an excellent reveal.
They saved her for so long.
And then the Amazing one is very cute. It's romantic. And then I think that the Tom Holland Zendaya one is funny, but I think playing it for a joke for me didn't really work out. She's like, "You're Spider-Man." Yeah, obviously, I figured that out.
I think the more emotional is the better because I think it's a big part of the character.
Yeah, I think it was a little underwhelming for the Far From Home was that one. Yeah. For me, I mean, it's cute, it was funny, but it was a little too light for something so impactful as discovering that he's Spider-Man. Like the Ned one is really funny when he comes into his room and Ned's waiting for him and he drops the Star Wars Lego set. Yeah. Like that's funny, but it's just because it's Ned. You know what I mean?
And when Aunt May finds out at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming that he's Spider-Man.
Like
Homecoming, right?
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. That one's super funny, and that works played for a laugh. But when it's someone that you love, I felt like it should have been a little bit more deeper than that.
Yeah, but also the music in these movies are really great. James Horner did the first one, terrific job. But then Hans Zimmer did the second one.
Oh yeah,
it's this guy. How does he do it? He's done superhero themes for what 4 heroes now. So he's done Batman. Well, 5. He's done Batman twice. He's done Superman. He's done Wonder Woman. He's done Spider-Man. Like what can't the guy do now?
Well, technically, he didn't do the Batman theme in Batman vs Superman. It was Junkie XL.
Well, they worked together on that.
Yeah, they worked together. But he had Junkie Tom Hulkenberg. He was like, "You do Batman. I'm gonna keep doing Superman." That's how they split it.
Okay, gotcha. Well, still, he's still worked on the project.
Oh yeah. He worked on the project.
It's pretty crazy just to think about. He's done so much, not in terms of just movies, but the superhero genre, what he's done to it musically.
Yeah. And I really like James Horner's score. I think he got a really cool theme and some really great, like it's nice to see him use electronic sounds. He doesn't do that often. But I do love Hans's score in the second one. It's super inspiring. And then also, I think the Electro theme is really fantastic. It's so epic. Fun. He brought Pharrell and like 4 other amazing musicians together to make the music for that, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Yeah. He played around with it, and I love the way he did because like he always interprets like the character into his themes. Like it sounds like sometimes there's like it sounds like spiders are crawling. It's the same thing he did with Batman Begins when it sounds like wings are flapping like the opening of that movie and stuff like Vespertillo.
He creates sounds.
It's like, but he did that with like spiders for this one.
Yeah, and I like Electro. I just don't like the appearance. And I think Max is like so cartoonish before he becomes Electro. I think it's a little like takes you out of it. Feels a little too comic booky, tongue and cheeky. And I ultimately didn't love the blue design of Electro because you got Jamie Foxx. Just let him be Jamie Foxx. Obviously, it worked best in No Way Home. Yeah, just let him be him.
He's a very handsome guy.
Very handsome, so personable. But he's great as Max. He's very charming. He's very funny. But I think that the fights, the action scenes of Electro are really strong in this film. The Times Square one is a lot of fun. I think it was really surprising seeing the power that he has. And then like when he and Harry go to Oscorp and he just kills that guy no problem. And when he has his full power, he's a really great villain, I think.
I think they were probably trying to come off Watchmen with the design and everything. I think they were going for like a Dr. Manhattan look sort of, and the powers in a way, The blue design, I don't hate it, but I love the No Way Home design so much more. I wanted the yellow lightning, and we said, we can see Jamie Foxx because even when he's Max before he's Electro, before he gets his powers, and he's got the comb over and everything, he's still Jamie Foxx. It's still look at the jawline, it's still a handsome guy. So it's hard to imagine someone that perfect in a way to be so dorky. It's sort of like Ryan Gosling. I think it was good. They did a good job with Lars and the Real Girl to make him seem unattractive in a way. But I think with Electro, it was too comical in a way. Like the comb over was funny, but it's funny. It's tongue in cheek. Like when he is saved by Spider-Man the first time, and then he becomes obsessed with Spider-Man. He thinks they're best friends, and Spider-Man's like, "Hey man, I need you. What's your name, Max? You're my eyes and ears out here." He's like, "Lick this hand." So he licks his hand and fixes his comb over. It's really funny. Yeah. But it's still I think he's just a little too dorky. And maybe it would have worked better if he was more of like a arrogant, confident kind of technological mogul or something like that, which they did with Venom.
Yeah. I just think I agree. The approach to the initial stage of the character, it could have been better if he was already someone who had power beforehand, and then he just became even even greater power made him turn even more dark as a person.
But I do crack up the whole time when he's like in his apartment. He's
very funny.
birthday.
It reminds me of Edward Nygma in
kinda.
Batman and Robin.
Him and Spider-Man are best friends in his mind, and they have conversations, and he looks in the mirror. And it's kind of like the King of Comedy with Rupert Grint. I mean Rupert Pumpkin. So I get that vibe from him for sure.
Yeah, but I think that the fight scenes are really great between him and Electro. But I will say, I wish that, and it's odd because what's great is he eliminates the web shooters in the first fight, and that takes away one of Peter's greatest strengths as Spider-Man. And Peter, using his ingenuity and intellect and engineering skills, he has to figure out a way of making his web shooters to be able to defend against the lightning and the electricity that Electro presents when he fights. So I love that aspect to Peter, again, using his skills as a very intelligent person to fix his suit and try and take on this antagonist. But I will say, when Spider-Man keeps getting electrocuted over and over again, there's one line of like a person in New York off screen who's like, I think that he was wearing a rubber suit. I think it would have been better if like he was really affected greatly physically by the lightning in the first fight, and so he had to make a new suit made out of like some kind of rubber material to be able to deflect the electricity.
It's not a bad idea.
When he met him again. That's something I wanted to see as well, because he's getting like electrocuted like crazy.
It's just another little like plot hole nugget that they throw in to like tape it up with Elmer's glue.
Yeah, exactly. And I know he's superhuman, but still like that's a lot of electricity, and they don't really explain why the suit's not getting damaged, why he's not really getting damaged physically from the lightning.
Because the first battle we don't. Let's do it, pal. We'll begin with our movie quote competition. This one's for me.
Let's go.
Yeah, but John, if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks out, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
That's Dr. Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little Goldblum impression. Yeah, but John, if the pirates breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourists.
I love that guy. All right, here's my quote. If you want the ultimate, you've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. It's not tragic to die doing what you love.
It's a good one.
If you want the ultimate, you've got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. It's not tragic to die doing what you love.
That sounds so familiar, but I can't think of it.
Bodhi in Point Break.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I am an
FBI agent.
I can't
Describe what I'm feeling.
Why is it so hard? All right, guess this movie release year. Crazy, Stupid, Love.
I'm going to go 2014.
2011.
Damn it. That was in the back.
It's a lot older than you think. That was the first one that I think Emma and Gosling worked on together, right?
Correct.
That and then Gangster Squad.
And then La La Land. Okay. The Devil's Advocate.
Oh, I like this movie a lot. Pacino, Keanu. I'm gonna say I feel like this is a '90s movie. I feel like maybe early 2000s. I'm gonna go 1997.
Yeah,
nice.
That's correct.
Got it.
That is correct.
Nailed it. All right, movie pop quiz time. What was Emma Stone's first film?
Emma Stone's first film, just in general, not leading.
Movie role.
Oh man, I'm gonna go Superbad.
Correcto.
Really? That's her first movie?
First movie. She did.
Wow.
She was in 4 TV shows, couple TV movies.
Yeah.
Like two TV shows, couple TV movies. But I mean, like a first movie. Superbad.
That's not bad at all. That's a great first movie. Okay, here's my pop quiz. Who played Keanu Reeves' wife in The Devil Advocate?
Oh, what's her name? I can picture her perfectly in my head. Oh, crap. Same. Is it the same actress in Heat? No.
Ashley Judd?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it?
Yes.
No.
It's
Charlize. She just has blonde curly hair. It's Charlize
You're
Theron.
right. It's Charlize Theron.
Yeah, it's one of her first roles.
Oh man, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was picturing Ashley Judd.
Because they have blonde curly hair.
It's the same exact hairstyle. Yeah, you're right.
Well, Charlize's hair is a little tighter curls, and then
But it's the same like at the shoulder length, you know?
Yeah. But they do look similar with blonde curly hair.
Yeah.
They look alike.
I think it was the makeup too.
Stumped ya!
You did stump me. That was a good one. All right, who we got for haters of this week? We got any real ones?
Well, first we have... Well, actually, yes, do haters first. Okay, I got a couple real ones. So I posted the Hans Gruber clip talking about how it was Alan Rickman's first movie was Die Hard, playing Hans Gruber. Then Julian Restrepo did not like the clip and wrote, "Dude's just reading facts and call it a podcast."
On TikTok.
Yeah. But then one of our fans responded, it's your boy Taylor. It's your boy Tyler wrote, "Our biggest hater of the week goes to," and then I just wrote, "They don't even know it yet." And then that guy responded to our fan and wrote, "Good for you, man. I bet you go far with that generic podcast."
I mean, we both just quit our jobs, play.
Yeah,
we work with IMAX and LG and stuff. It's pretty good couple months.
Things are looking pretty good.
Hope you have fun working at Cumberland Farms, playa.
Cumberland Farms. All right, now we have a few unsubscribes. This is good.
I love how people try to like take it, like tear us down. But
Yeah.
it's like we're doing okay.
Yeah, you're helping our
Paying the
algorithm,
bills.
bro.
Paying the bills.
So I posted a Joe Pesci clip about how Goodfellas and Home Alone both came out in 1990, but I purposely wrote 1890 in the clip to trigger people.
Did you really? Did it make it go viral?
Yeah, it got like a ton of comments because of it, but a lot of people were joking about it, but some people were like triggered. But we got a bunch of funny comments. So our fan Shell Loves Nady wrote 1890 unsubscribed.
Joe Pesci wasn't even born yet.
And then someone wrote, 1890, he was way ahead of the curve. And then someone else wrote, Joe Pesci created cinema with the Lumiere brothers. And Mr. Javio wrote, "This confirms the multiverse, unsubscribed."
That's a good reference to Lumiere Bros.
Yeah, I liked it.
Anyone who doesn't know that they made one of the first features, Trip to the Moon.
And then that post you wrote of that terrible hater on Instagram who like gave us a bad review.
Oh, yeah.
Travis Yocom33 wrote, to be honest, at this point, if your voice doesn't crack in a new video, I'm unsubscribed.
There's a ton of great comments in that.
It's so funny. And then we have 2 fan questions for today. All right, so Not Dawson01 wrote, "Which movie characters would you recruit for a Reservoir Dogs style heist?"
Oh, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Joseph Gordon-Levitt would be a good role for if you're recasting the movie.
If you're doing a Reservoir Dogs type heist, who would you use for movie characters? Not actors, but movie characters.
Oh, movie characters for a heist?
Yeah.
But like no superheroes, right?
Yeah, no superheroes. That would be unfair if you're just doing a heist. I would say, let's do John McClane.
We got to get Harvey Keitel in there somehow.
Yeah, but he's already in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah. But he's been in
Hold on.
all right.
John McClane, because he's like a sweet talker, smooth talker. He'll help with like business end. Then we need
Kurt Russell somehow.
No, at movies, the characters.
I know. I'm just thinking of like a Kurt Russell character, bro.
All right, like who?
He's an actor. He's in a lot of roles, all right? Death Proof Kurt Russell.
Stuntman Mike.
Yeah, Stuntman Mike. Yeah.
Patrick Bateman.
Just a bunch of serial killers, I guess.
We get Commando Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, Commando.
Then
we need Gosling and Drive. We need Driver.
Yeah.
We need
Oh, yeah,
cool.
Driver. Yeah.
We need someone cool
Driver.
to drive.
Yeah. And then plays Beyond the Pines, Gosling. Put your hands in the air. Put your hands in the air.
Get the money in the bag.
And then Ethan Hunt for the plan.
The thing is, this would work. That's the problem.
It would totally
It'd
work.
be a successful. It would be a successful heist.
And then the Joker from Dark Knight.
This is the worst plan ever.
Okay. Palmer22 asks, "What's your favorite video game?"
Favorite video game of all time?
All time.
It's tough. I mean, we grew up playing Super Mario Bros. On NES, so like that's just like got a special place in my heart forever. But I mean,
I really enjoyed playing Halo when it came out.
Halo was
like
sick.
in
Call of Duty.
2000.
Call of Duty back in the day.
I like Assassin's Creed's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I like
Assassin's Creed. Pokemon Yellow on Game Boy was the jam, dude. That was the best.
Yeah. Pokemon.
It's tough to choose. Me, I liked Mass Effect a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last video game I played was Batman Arkham Asylum. That was like 5 years ago I played that, but I haven't played a video game since then.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we played a lot of...
So what would you pick?
I don't maybe Pokemon.
I think I'm doing Game Boy Pokemon.
Yeah. It's just too engrossing.
It was great.
It's too addicting.
Yeah.
Like, when we were 11 years old, that was like my life.
Yeah, y'all don't understand. It was crazy addicting. It was bad. All right, then our Godfather tier shout out for today is Gabriel Townsend, a fan of the show for a long time, a good friend of ours. He just joined our Godfather tier on Patreon, and we love his support. He actually got to pick the first episode we did for the Godfather tier, and he picked ranking Scorsese's films. So we just posted that last week. That was a fun one. So thank you so much for the support, Gabriel. We love you.
You're the best. All right. Good with your stuff?
Yeah.
Supporter of the week of this episode is a great 5-star review from your dad, which I doubt it's our dad because dad doesn't even know what a podcast is. I don't even think he knows we make money off this. He's like, what do they do? They talk about movies. Oh, send me a tape of that. All right, greatest podcast. Found this podcast on TikTok, and I'm glad I did. Their knowledge of movies is incredible, and I don't mean movie facts and behind-the-scenes info, but guessing movie years and movies based off quotes to near perfection. Listening to this made me realize how much movies I haven't watched, so I enjoy episodes on stuff I've watched. I haven't watched it, then I'll listen anyways, and they'll make me want to watch it, or it'll be good background noise while working or driving. Great job, guys. Also, unsubscribe is the best, but 100% love this.
Thanks, pal.
On this day in film history, today is December 30th. It's a very slow day in film history, like nothing happened. No movies get released today, none worth talking about. But happy birthday to our brother Jamie, Tyrese Gibson, and Eliza Dushku.
What's up, bud?
Sorry you didn't make the Fast and Furious cut. And our streaming recommendation for me, I just watched Predestination for the first time, and it's on Amazon Prime. I rented it, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
They just added Serpico on Amazon Prime, so you should check that out.
Get this to the mayor.
You know who your friends are, Serpico? All right, back to Spider-Man. I think one of the best parts of this Spider-Man franchise is I think it has the best. Well, actually, they don't do it in Tom Holland's, but the best reveal of Spider-Man's powers, like the entire sequence where he's discovering that he's like super strong and sticky. This is super fun. Like
it's super, yeah,
he's
it's really
breaking
funny.
the faucets, the doorknobs,
the toothpaste.
Yeah, it's very fun.
He's like sitting in his bed, like, what's going on?
Yeah,
with me?
yeah.
Like looking around, seeing
Exactly.
things. It's really great, and I like the sequence of him getting bit by the spider. The spider's falling all over him. He's like, oh my god, this is disgusting. Because like we would all react like that.
Yeah.
And that one spider bites him. It's pretty gross. It's gnarly when he pulls the strand out and he pulls the spider. He's like, that's not a normal spider. It's kind of like Into the Spider-Verse. It was like more funny than it was freaky and dramatic. And I think my favorite part about what they did with Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is showing his intelligence. They did it with Tom Holland's as well, but Toby's intelligence in the first one's never really revealed. Like you only find out as
3.2 electron volts.
Yeah,
it's class. That's
the Spider-Man 2,
Yeah.
right? But in Spider-Man 1, the only time his intelligence is shown is at graduation. He's like with the chess club and he takes photos with them. So like,
he understood Norman's book. And you understood that. It's impressive.
Yeah, so like we don't learn much about
myself.
his intelligence. Like he makes the suit and everything, but in Amazing Spider-Man, Peter develops his own webbing, and right away we show he's a great engineer. He has that lock that he made that can lock his door with the remote control and everything like that. So he's like an engineering whiz and a science whiz. So I really love how they expanded on that and actually just focused on that.
And also the approach to him being a photographer, because the other two franchises don't do a great job. Like, yes, Peter Parker becomes a photographer by Spider-Man 2, but it kind of just comes out of nowhere. He's like, Norman's like, what are you thinking of doing with yourself? He's like, I think I'm going to be a photographer.
I disagree. He takes photos for the yearbook and stuff.
Remember
my God, when he gets bit by
right.
Have you seen
You're
Spider-Man?
Right. Oh
It's like the main
idiot.
part of his character.
I'm an idiot. You're right.
Peter Parker.
He's just taking photos of MJ.
Let's run that back. Anthony said that Peter Parker never took a photo in the first Spider-Man movie. What? Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Never. I actually haven't.
Got you.
But okay,
You gotta get fired. You're fired.
but
Taking calls for anyone who wants to be on
he
the
actually
podcast.
probably takes more photos than Andrew Garfield does.
Yeah.
Because
Takes a lot.
Garfield's just photoshopping.
It's like his main character. It's like it's not engineering or anything. It's photography.
All right, so that was always missing from Tom Holland's, and now he'll be a photographer, I think, in the next trilogy of his films. But I always thought that was missing from Tom Holland's. Of he doesn't take photos of anything ever, really. And even though like he's gonna be a photographer when he becomes an adult, still would have been cool to see him with a camera every once in a while.
Yeah, have that high school photographer phase.
Yeah, exactly. That artsy phase.
Every person who gets a Canon Rebel. I'm an artist now. Don't worry, I've been there. I'm making fun of myself too. But I actually want to talk about what happened to The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and why it didn't get made. So in June 2013, The Hollywood Reporter published a report announcing that The Amazing Spider-Man 3 and a fourth movie in the franchise would open in theaters on June 10th, 2016, and then May 4th, 2018, respectively. And remember, so Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out in 2014, so this is before the release of the sequel, of the second film. And then The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was released and met with lukewarm response critically and financially, underperforming with a worldwide gross of $708 million, according to Box Office Mojo, which is, not great for a sequel in a massive superhero film, especially from Sony. And, it put the future of the franchise in doubt. And then remember in 2014, in November, after the sequel came out, Sony Pictures Entertainment was hacked by a group calling itself the Guardians of Peace. And so this was a huge hacking situation where Sony, the emails of, in their details of the entire franchise and plans of the Spider-Man universe were leaked and everything. And the email hack revealed plans for the Spider-Man in the MCU, but without Andrew Garfield. So that even put a tamper on, is there going to be an Amazing Spider-Man 3 now that Sony doesn't even want Garfield to be, going forward, Peter Parker in the franchise? And then Kevin Feige, we found out, was instrumental in convincing Sony to reboot Spider-Man in the MCU. So in the book, The Story of Marvel Studios, The Making of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, dealing with the construction of the MCU, never before details were heard regarding Spider-Man's arrival into the MCU being laid out, including Feige's role in developing a reboot rather than an Amazing Spider-Man sequel to the second film. And then in August 2017, years after Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4 were canceled, Webb, the director of the first two films, told Den of Geek that the third movie in his franchise would have seen the web-slinger face off with the Sinister Six, led by none other than the reanimated frozen head of Norman Osborn, who would be the King Goblin, I think that's what it's called. And there would be an epic battle that would probably looked a lot like Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay.
At the end of that movie.
I also read that the studio had a lot of friction between themselves and Garfield. Garfield didn't want to go to Sony events and stuff and wasn't very good at communicating with them and was outspoken against what they were doing with the overall trajectory. And also, he was trying to get them involved with the MCU for a while. And I think that's what really caused tension between the studio and Garfield.
And I can't remember who the head of Sony Studios was at the time, but
before Pascal,
they didn't get along. But that's still all speculation in room. We don't fully know what happened, but I think that's just what people believe.
And I mean, that's crazy to think that you don't want to keep Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man because it's not his fault that the second movie wasn't good.
Yeah, and the thing is, they perfectly set up The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the ending, to set up all of the villains going forward because obviously it ends with, that underground situation at Oscorp, all their special projects that they're working on.
Their sequel projects.
Their sequels.
Legit.
They call it special projects, the sequels, and you can obviously see the technology for Vulture. You can see Doc Ock, his tentacles floating around, and then we get the Rhino was the first test that Paul Giamatti's character, the Russian mobster, gets the first test and crack at as a new villain in the Rhino as Rhino at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I got to be honest, I did not like that. I didn't like how Oscorp was going to be creating all of these villains themselves rather than each character going through their own journey of developing their own super villainous powers and creations. So I didn't like that approach. And also, I think that was ultimately the biggest weakness of the Amazing franchise is they were always gearing towards this trilogy rather than just making solo films that were just great on their own. They're always just thinking ahead rather than thinking in the present. And I think that was ultimately the biggest weakness of the franchise, especially Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they were so focused on the Sinister Six. And, it's cool seeing the teases of Oscorp in the first one, but not seeing Norman and all this stuff. But I think that if they had just approached it as let's just make the best movie we can one at a time, it would have worked better.
Yeah, because this Oscorp, they spent the first two movies constantly covering things up and being a shady company and we can't let anyone see what happened with Electro and everything and Max. And then their plan at the end of the second film is we're gonna make a bunch of supervillains.
Yeah, it's what?
Are you trying to be covert or what?
What are they gonna do with the supervillains?
Are you gonna take over the planet? Is that your goal to just take over the world and you're being secretive about it now?
The motivation I just never understood.
Because I think it works better where Oscorp's obviously involved with the creation of the villains in the first film, and I mean the first trilogy. Even even Otto, he's funded by Oscorp, so
Yeah.
Oscorp's connected to that somehow. Goblins, both of them are obviously connected to Oscorp.
But it's not like an evil twisting my mustache. It's like Harry just invested in Otto is all it was.
So like the entire Oscorp corporation, like they're just planning on making a bunch of supervillains, which doesn't make a ton of sense.
Whereas in the first one, Oscorp's trying to make money off of Otto's research.
Yeah,
is what it was.
In Amazing Spider-Man, Curtis Connors, he's trying to get his genetics research to work where he can actually save people's lives. And obviously one of his main motivations, which is why he's a great villain, is he's trying to regrow his own arm. And so he has two motivations where he wants to help people, but also get back to what he was before his injury.
Yeah, and I think that with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, they just really misstepped with the Osborn characters, both Harry and Norman, because I like first I like the approach of like this disease that's turning them into like a goblin with goblin-like features, but like Norman Osborn just being the sick guy in a bed after seeing what Willem Dafoe did with the character was just so underwhelming. And then, but while that was happening, I was like, okay, maybe so they're setting up Harry to be like the great villain, not Norman. So I was like, okay. But then Harry ended up just being like very underwhelming as a villain, and I like Dan Dehan as a good actor, but I just don't think that he had a right approach to this character. The Goblin in this movie was just like weird, not scary, kind of like a silly performance by the time it's the third act, and I just didn't. I didn't understand why if Norman like didn't like his son at all and had nothing, didn't teach him anything, and just shipped him off to boarding school and had like no involvement in his life. Why did he give him the company completely? Like that doesn't happen with corporations. It's not like it's like a familial transfer of powers the way it goes. It's like there's CEOs transfer all the time. Like just looking at Sony, there have been plenty of CEOs of Sony themselves, and it's not
well, you
like
can assume this is an older corporation that hasn't like sold out to a purchase yet.
they have a big board though.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's a publicly run a public company.
But it sounds like it's maybe like a Bruce Wayne situation where he has most 51% of the shares.
I guess, but they didn't explain that, and also like if he's letting his son take over the company, why didn't he prepare him at all? Is what I'm saying.
No, yeah, I agree with that.
Because Dane Dehan goes into that first meeting and it's like nobody knows this kid. He's like, you just think I'm this kid. It's like, why was he never in a meeting before this? And if he was a major shareholder before this, he would have been in boardroom meetings because he would be the second highest shareholder.
And he's got to be 18 at that point.
So he says he's 20. So it doesn't make sense that he's like had no involvement in the company, which he should have a major stake in.
Someone's been watching a lot of Succession.
Yeah, oh yeah, so much Succession.
Yeah, Harry, I think they could have done a great job with the character. It's his motivation is obviously trying to save his life. And, it seems like his father from the disease lasted quite a while. He lasted he's probably in his 50s. It's got to be.
Later, he looks like 60s.
But Harry's acting like he's going to die like in a week. And the movie's making it seem like he's dying like on his deathbed
on the verge
soon.
of death.
Because then there's no reason, like they never explain is it expedited or anything like that. But it seems like Harry has plenty of time to figure something out. But he's trying to figure it out in a week. And the movie makes it seem like he's about to die, which I didn't fully get.
And he's so desperate to get Spider-Man's blood and stuff, and it's like, bro, you got at least 50 years. Chill out. You can figure this out. You have all the money, and you have the company that can handle this. I'm sure you could find something. And it was confusing. Even watching it again, I asked you, I was like, wait, did it get expedited somehow, his disease? And you're like, no, not at all. I was like, oh, because now he's getting green stuff on his skin, and it's where
his father didn't have that in the old videos of Oscorp
exactly.
with him and Richard Parker. He doesn't have the green stuff. Maybe he had makeup on and stuff like that. But he was even older than Harry was at the time. He didn't have the full side effects yet.
So I think the story needed a moment where Harry maybe tried something super invasive, some kind of cure that would have expedited it,
which he did in the third act.
Yeah, which I think would. But if he did that in the halfway through the movie, we would have understand his motivations of being so desperate.
Yeah,
because if knowing that you're gonna live to 65, that's not oh my god, I'm gonna die.
Maybe if we learned there was a more advanced case of the disease, because again, because Chris Cooper, his father, Norman's on his deathbed, and I like how in the first film, that's all connected to Curtis Connors and his research, where Norman Osborn's funding this guy just so that he can try to save his life and save him from dying. And that's the whole point of the genetics research and the cross-species genetics. And it obviously doesn't work out. And then, Curtis Connors is under the amount of pressure where, I have to do this to save Norman Osborn's life. And then his funding gets cut when he doesn't get results.
Yeah. And I was behind the approach, but then why not just go full Goblin with Harry? They stopped the transition to if he it would have been great because they teased it with Norman with the hand that with the long nails and the lizard hand and the goblin-esque features, and like, why not just let Harry become full-on goblin-like appearance and like look like a monster? I think that would have been the right approach, especially if you tease it with Norman. Maybe Harry does something that advances it and makes it happen like immediately, and then you could have had like Goblin look like he looks like in the animated series in the comic books where he's like a monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then at the end of the film, like when everything's been solved and everything, and Harry's in prison, he doesn't really have the effects. He's like, oh, it comes and goes. It's like, then why were you in such a rush?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why'd you kill Gwen over this? Like,
why do we even do it then?
Chill out, Harry. Yeah. Like, smoke a J, relax. You're 20, dude. You got go to Cabo. Like, go chill.
You got all the money in the world, man.
Turks and Caicos or whatever that place is called.
Turks and Caicos.
Someone's gonna correct me.
I just don't. I think the overall design of the final character was so just like weird looking, not scary. Like the crazy thin hair and the teeth, it was just like it wasn't good. I just was not a fan of the Goblin in this.
Because Goblin in Amazing Spider-Man 2 makes Electro stand out big time.
Exactly.
And then especially when he takes the Venom and he doesn't understand that, when he doesn't know that it's Richard Parker's DNA, which will allow someone to live, so only Peter can take the Venom and survive and get the powers and everything. Yeah. Which was super clever by Richard to do that, to use his own DNA when doing the research. Yeah. And then his disease is expedited. Then he's dying, so he goes inside the suit, but he doesn't know what the suit is. And
he's never been here before.
He's never been there before. He gets into it. He's like, no, now I'm like super strong and everything. And it's a healing suit.
And how does the suit heal him exactly?
And he just knows how to use it. He like instantly knows how to use the glider. It seems like that needs a lot of practice to use that glider. It's pretty complicated machinery. Yeah. And it's a little aircraft.
Yeah, I was just like, how does the suit even work? It just says on his wrist healing, and it's like, okay.
They should have made Harry Goblin sooner in the film. Yeah. Rather than just the third act. Maybe that would have been a little more entertaining.
They could have had like a good horror scene if he's like full on like goblin monster like chasing like Emma Stone around in something scary.
Because the visual effects in these movies are probably one of the biggest strengths for sure. Because I love they look great in Spider-Man the original trilogy, but still they were doing stuff in this that they couldn't do back then. And I think that's one of the greatest strengths of the film, especially in Amazing Spider-Man 2. The visual effects are astounding, and the filmmaking in terms of like the super slow-mo stuff, I love that all.
Yeah, the CGI looks really fantastic, and in that final bell tower scene, like after they defeat Electro, Gwen and Peter, like fighting Harry was just like and kind of just like I didn't really care.
It's very fast.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, it happened in like 30 seconds, and I was
there was some good parts. Like I like when he kidnaps her and he's like chasing him in the sky and he can't web sling him. Yeah. But it was a little underwhelming, I think, in the end.
And it was pretty predictable what would happen.
And then Harry just like gets hit, and then we never see him again. Yeah, like it doesn't make sense. But something that I have an issue with Amazing Spider-Man 2 is Spider-Man and Electro's first fight scene is awesome in Times Square when Max wakes up in like that cocoon-like state. His like
really
charred
cool.
body that he wakes up inside of in the morgue.
It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Kind of. And then he goes to Times Square to find all the energy. Like I think the character's actually a lot better than most people remember. And then he can't control his powers. He doesn't know what's happening. And Spider-Man's the only, like the cops are all trying to like take him out. And then Spider-Man comes and he's like, hey, I'm trying to talk him out of it. And then they have their big battle, and Spider-Man defeats him with the water. And then what happens to Max? Like, what happens? And then he shows up in Oscorp's special projects section. It's like, where did Oscorp come from? Like, he was surrounded by police officers. Wouldn't they have taken him into custody? And then how did Oscorp
get involved?
Get involved or get custody of Max from the police if they were trying to keep him a secret and didn't want anyone to find out what happened to Max in general?
It's everywhere. It's all over the internet.
So, like, when you watch the movie, you're like, wait, how did he get to Oscorp?
How did he get from A to B?
He just shows up in that tank, which is horrible. You know, he's like a guinea pig at the time. And it's just like, I never understood, like, how did that happen?
Exactly.
And then Spider-Man just leaves Times Square. It's like, you want to make sure that he doesn't get power again? Like,
yeah, because it's not like he's dead. He's still alive. Like, he's just on the ground.
What if he dries off and gets some more electricity inside of him?
Yeah, they didn't explain, like, how does, like, obviously he gets electrical charges when he gets near it, but, like, how is he not near any electricity from that transfer?
Yeah, and also, him getting his powers in that tank of the electrical eels, right? Mm-hmm. The eels live in water, and then he gets their powers. Why is water a weakness to him? That kind of also doesn't make sense.
And also, electricity spreads through water. So
but if you have too much water, it drowns the electricity out.
I guess so. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I like Electro. Yeah. And I like how, like you said earlier, how Peter has to redevelop his web slingers to be magnetized, which Gwen helps him out with, and he's trying to figure out how to do it. He thinks like if I overcharge the battery, it'll be the best thing to do. But Gwen gives him the idea to magnetize him, which is, she says, is 8th grade science. And I'm like, I didn't learn that in 8th grade science. Makes me feel like an idiot. And also, I really like when Peter's using Google all the time. Like the first time he gets bit by the spider, he's like, what would you do? You'd be looking up WebMD, like spider bite. What's it look like? Does it look like that? He's looking up like information about his father. He's looking up information about how to stop, how to try to stop electricity and try to stop Electro. So I like that aspect of it.
It's the same thing with Tom Holland, like using his phone to like record selfies and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And like the FaceTime with Aunt May and Tony Stark. So I like the approach to technology as well. Super funny. Now, before we continue, I have to tell you about movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Use our special promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today. Movieposters.com is the best place to get your posters. They have all sorts of sizes, framing, backlighting, all of your poster needs. They can handle it, as well as pretty much every film and TV show imaginable they have in their arsenal. This is high quality stuff, everyone. If you need your posters, you got to deck out your place with a ton of movie stuff. Go to movieposters.com and use our special promo code Raiders10 to get 10% off your order today.
And I really liked in the first Amazing Spider-Man, the relationship between Peter and Curtis Connors. After Peter finds Curtis Connors, tells him he's Richard Parker, after he sneaks into Oscorp, which is super funny. And then, they start to develop a relationship. Peter gives him the full algorithm to help solve the decay algorithm, right? Is that what it's called? The decay
algorithm.
The decay algorithm.
Zero
decay rate algorithm.
Decay
So he
rate.
gives him that to help him to finish his equation, which obviously works in a way, not the way he thinks it'll work. Like the first time it works and he gets his arm back, you think it's like, oh my God, this is really miraculous when you're watching it. Then it goes sideways.
I love how happy he is with the new arm, but it looks disgusting.
Well, it's like, what would an arm look like if it was like newborn? Like I think they wanted to make it look like maybe like a fetus.
Yeah, I guess.
Like inside the womb. Like maybe that's what it looks like in early development stages of like second trimester.
Yeah.
That's what it does look a little creepy.
This is the motherhood podcast.
Of two guys that are not mothers. But I like their relationship, and I like Peter, on the tail of Lizard and on the tail of Curtis Connors, like the conversation where he's like, how much would the foreign species take over? What would the side effects be? Because Peter's also trying to learn what happened to him at the same time trying to stop this giant lizard that's terrorizing the city.
Yeah, and I love the fight on the bridge because Peter has to save that kid, and I think that's the first instance where Peter deals with life and death for such an innocent person when he saves that kid, because after the bridge scene, you can tell he's like emotionally disturbed when he's in his room, just like thinking over the events. Like he almost let a kid die.
Yeah.
So the stakes are really high when you're Spider-Man of saving these people.
Yeah, because when he's first Spider-Man and he's sort of like a vigilante, you could say, and he's fighting crime, he's not exactly like fully fighting crime. He's trying to find Ben's killer, so he's got like a vendetta against this guy with long blonde hair and sunglasses and the star tattoo on his wrist. So he's not really helping people. He's just trying to find somebody while at the same time stopping a couple criminals, but still he's not really Spider-Man yet. And then that's the first time where I think you could say he saves a purely innocent life just out of wanting to save somebody.
Definitely. 100%.
Rather than trying to get revenge, which is his first character flaw as Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I really like the lizard fights. The fight in the sewers is great, even though it's a little short, but then the school fight's really fun.
Yeah.
I think it was a great job. But also, it's like, did no one question, like, Mater Peter Parker goes to school here after that fight?
Well, yeah. Why would the lizard be there?
There's webs everywhere. Peter Parker must go to school here. I mean, Spider-Man must be at school here.
But I think they did the school sequences really well. I like Flash. He's done really well in this movie because everyone still, even though Flash is a bully, when Ben dies, he still acts like a friend in a way. They start to develop a relationship.
He doesn't look 35.
Yeah, he looks like he's 22.
Legit.
Instead of 35. But, the loss of Ben takes a huge toll on Peter. And we really see that in this film, specifically the first one, which you saw in Tobey's Spider-Man's, but not to this extent.
It was just for a sequence.
Yeah, in terms of him like being at school and everybody's looking at him, which, I'm sure we've all been to school. Maybe someone in our class had a family member or a father or mother die, and you see how tough it is for them, and you're kind of all just like thinking about them and looking at them without them wanting to know, because you're just, it's a horrible situation. And so him walking through the halls, and then even though he had just asked Gwen out, he's avoiding Gwen. He's avoiding everything in his life just until he finds revenge.
Yeah, and then they have Branzino.
And then Branzino, who doesn't love it? Who doesn't love it?
It was funny seeing Dennis Leary in this movie, because we love Leary. We used to watch Rescue Me. and then he was coming off Rescue Me with this movie.
I don't fully love him. I've heard a lot about him in joke stealing, so I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm sure. I've heard he's stolen a lot of jokes in the
No
stand-up, like his
way.
old school stand-ups.
Oh, screw that.
So I don't know.
Screw him.
But he's good in the role as the captain.
But the second one, I think when you have characters seeing ghosts in a movie, it's like a big no-no, unless it's a scary haunted house movie or whatever, like a horror movie. But when you have like when you're trying to make a fun, realistic movie and you have characters seeing like the ghost of the Captain Stacy, I'm like, that really takes me out of this movie. Because he sees Dennis Leary like 4 times, and it's like, I understand it's a metaphor for like him whenever he's with Gwen, he sees Stacy's ghost, but I'm just like, he's not like losing his mind. People don't see ghosts. You know what I mean?
You've never seen a ghost?
No, I've never seen a ghost.
Someone listening has seen a ghost for sure.
Yeah,
And they're like, they're leaving a 1-star review. I see ghosts all the time in my padded room.
And for me, that really takes you out of the experience of the movie. Whenever I see Dennis Leary in Spider-Man 2, I'm like, oh, come on, here we go again.
Yeah,
I think that is definitely a huge weakness of the second film.
But it's a good character, I think, to have. You know, Gwen's connected both to obviously her father, but then to Spider-Man, and you know she's hesitant to be in the relationship with Peter because she talks about how her father's a cop, you know, or Peter's Spider-Man. She doesn't want anything to happen to Peter. Like she always is worried that something's going to happen to her father. You know, she says that he straps on the badge and the gun to his belt, and I'm always worried that he's not going to come home someday. And she's worried about the same thing happening to Peter Parker. So she's got both the most important man in her life she's always worried about.
Although in the second film, she wants to be with him. I think that the second film, their relationship, it's still solid, the romance, but they break up like 3 times, and it gets a little repetitive.
Well, I mean, I think that happens a lot. That's pretty common in relationships where you go through multiple breakups, then you like have that phase where you're like, oh, we'll just be friends, and then you hang out and you're like, oh man, we should still see each other again.
I've never done that.
Well, I mean, you're gonna lose your virginity at some point.
40-year-old virgin over here.
Dude, you're not even 32. You got plenty of time. You'll have a breakup and you'll have like the friends phase where then you go back together.
Be Spider-Man.
Yeah, and then you'll be Spider-Man. It'll be great. You never been Spider-Man before?
No, never, man.
Oh man, it's too bad.
I just say I feel like it was just a little too. It happened too many times, like the same conversation.
Yeah. So the second film.
Yeah,
I get that, but I mean, you've never had that. I thought it was relatable, honestly.
No, it's relatable, but I think it just happened too much. Because they did it at the end of the first one, then they did it after graduation, and then they like did it again.
Well, they did it in a strong way where then Gwen's like, I break up with you. I'm taking control. I'm not going to let you break up with me. Yeah. So I think that was actually a strong part of it.
Oh, yeah, I agree, but I just think they didn't have to keep do it so many times.
True.
Yeah.
But I think the third act in the first film is really great, too, especially, you know, when the captain... They're all chasing Lizard to Oscorp, and now everyone's like, oh, there actually is a giant lizard. And then they're also tracking Spider-Man, and the cops take him out. And then Gwen's father finds out his identity and lets him go away to stop Lizard. And then, you know, he gets the bullet wound on his leg and he can't fully run. Everyone's like, oh, Peter needs help. Like, Spider-Man needs help. And then I love how the guys on the rigs with the cranes all turn them to help Spider-Man out to get to Oscorp. It's really great.
Yeah.
The music is awesome. It's really uplifting.
Yeah. It's very like, oh, yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
It's a solid third act, too. You know, Gwen's father dies sacrificing his life to help save the city and help Spider-Man. And, you know, that promise that Spider-Man makes to Gwen's father is really emotional because then he breaks up with her at the end. He's not at the funeral. Well, she doesn't see him at the funeral, even though he's on the building. And she's like, everyone came except for you. You didn't come here. So it's actually a really powerful ending.
And I will say that the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they have some of the best web slinging.
Oh, absolutely. I think they have the best web slinging.
Like the POV shots, like when he flies through the air and then he lands on the side of the skyscraper and it's just his reflection. And also he like put the camera like it's like on his waist looking up, and then you're like underneath Spider-Man as he's swinging. I love all these POV great. Like it's like Nolan strapping the camera to a car or a plane. It's super cool.
I think No Way Home definitely like took notes from that, and they have like the kind of like the
Scorsese strap.
Yeah, the strap on cam of Zendaya and Tom swinging together. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man, like the minute details, like the opening of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 where the logo fades into the logo on his back of his costume, and he's just falling from like 1,000 feet up in the air, and the wrinkling from the wind and everything on his suit and his costume. The tiny
those are details
like that.
They couldn't do with the originals.
Yeah, and I really like the close-ups of like the web sling shooters. We got a lot of that like all the time. We see that. So I think that the web swinging is really fantastic. It's like looks sort of like a spider flying around at the same time as a human being.
And I love the final shot of the first film, the slow-mo with the moon behind him, and he's in that cool pose in the air, and then the web shooters just shooting slow-mo towards the screen.
Yeah.
And I like that when he's trying to save Gwen in the web, kind of looks like a hand reaching out for her.
Yeah,
That's really cute. That's really
it's really
cute.
touching. He's like, I'm trying to grab you.
But I think it definitely has. It could have the best web slinging of all the movies.
I think it does. I think you're absolutely right.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, overall, I love The Amazing Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's pretty good. I think the script could have been a lot better. I wish maybe Steve Kloves could have trimmed it up. Maybe that's why they're like, no, we don't want you, Steve. You make things make sense. Let's get some.
You think we want continuity?
We just want a yes man here. JK. It's still pretty good. It's still better than the last time I watched it that I thought of it because I hadn't seen it in a few years.
Electro is better than I remember.
I think Electro is actually the best part of the movie. Gwen's death, questionable. But I think overall, the first one's really, really great. I probably would put it top 5 maybe in my Spider-Man list. But, the second one's not terrible.
Yeah.
And I wish maybe we'll get a third one now. I doubt it. I mean, I feel like maybe Garfield might be a little too old, but maybe they'll play with that. Who knows?
Yeah, I think maybe it could have been a curtain call No Way Home for him.
I think it was a curtain call for him and Toby. I'm not sure they're going to do it again.
I don't think they would want to.
I know it would make $1 billion, though.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows?
But I mean, if it's not good, people will be disappointed.
True, but I mean, they like money.
They gotta get get Marvel involved if they're gonna do it. Honestly,
I guess they could, but it's just I would check it out for sure. I would like to see it, but I just don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want them to they're working on an idea on a script. I'm sure they're thinking about it. Yeah. We'll see what happens in the future. Why not? Especially with the multiverse happening everywhere, not just in superhero and the MCU, but in DC and A24 movies. So multiverse is just a huge thematic element in motif and stories today in movies. So I could see it happening. I'll definitely check it out. I'd be excited to see it, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think Andrew Garfield he's just a really terrific Peter Parker, and I adore his performance, and I think he did a really fantastic job.
Yeah, with what he was working with. Yeah. They did him dirty in the second one, but you know what? Yeah. He's really, really great.
And Emma Stone's awesome. And, these movies, they're not bad. The first one's really good. The second one's okay. But, I mean, there's still great elements to both of them.
Also, another thing that bugs me about Amazing Spider-Man 2, real quick. You. So, Gwen's getting into Oxford. It's a really big deal. Yeah. And she's going to move to London. And she, nails the interview. Then that same day, she's an hour later, she's, getting on a flight to London or to England. It's I get you want to go to the early class, but,
did you even pack?
Can you wait a day? Wait a day.
Did you even pack anything?
Relax.
Did you go from the interview to the airport?
I'm sure you can miss the first day of the early class. You're still in high school. You just graduated yesterday.
It's they're setting up emotional stakes that don't make sense.
It's just they're putting Elmer's glue on these plot holes, which after a few of them are fine in movies and especially big blockbuster movies, but when there's a dozen in one movie, it's just kind of come on, guys. The first one was so good. And I think the last thing I want to talk about before we head into trivia and stuff, I think is post Gwen's death, Spider-Man disappears for several months. I think we finally see it happened with Uncle Ben, we see loss, but real devastating loss we've never seen on a Spider-Man before, with Peter Parker not wanting to be Spider-Man for so long because of Gwen's death. And, he finally comes back later on, but I think it's really well done. It shows grief in I think the best way in maybe all the Spider-Man movies. I love the changing of seasons, him at the cemetery constantly, probably goes to see her every single day. And it's really tough to watch because we've all, I'm sure, lost loved ones. And I think to watch Peter Parker go through it in such an emotional ways, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did a good job with that. That being said, let's move on to some trivia. While filming The Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, during his breaks, would go around New York City playing basketball with the local kids while wearing his Spider-Man outfit.
In The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man uses artificial devices to shoot webs inspired from the original comics, where he possessed similar devices for his webbing. Mark Webb, the director, explained the web shooters were a creative decision to showcase Peter's intellect. We wanted to emphasize that these are things that Peter Parker made and that he is special himself, even if he feels like he's an outsider.
To prepare for his role as Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield studied the movements of spiders and tried to incorporate them as much as he could in his performance, saying that Peter Parker is a boy spider in terms of how he moves, and it's not just in the suit but in everyday life.
Before filming The Amazing Spider-Man, Reese Ifans researched his role by meeting several real handicapped people who have missing limbs. He also spent 1 month performing his daily activities using only his left hand, including tying a tie. The script had a small snippet written where Connors ties a tie, but it was not filmed as it was too time-consuming. In The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Felicity Jones's role was significantly cut down due to time constraints. In an interview, Jones stated that she would be an ally to Harry Osborn Green Goblin, and at one point even let it slip that she was playing the Goblin's girlfriend. Though a small scene showing her alliance to Harry was in the final cut, scenes that implied that there were romantic feelings between the two characters were cut from the film. All right, that wraps this episode on The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are around the world. We hope you enjoyed listening to this and you loved Andrew Garfield as much as we do as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Be sure to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Take care. This is the last episode of 2021, so we'll see you in 2022, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you're new. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Find us on all audio streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to check out one of these other videos right here for more content on our favorite films and breaking down all kinds of movie content. Thanks so much.